Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Gutenberg Live Show. I'm your happy host, Joe Casabona, and with me, as always, is Zach Gordon. Zach,
Howdy,
how are you?
y'all. Good, man. Good to be back with you. There's more Gutenberg news. Look at that.
Lots of Gutenberg news. Man, this is like I feel like how I imagine SNL feels when they take the summer off. They come back and there's all like Weekend Update has all these things to talk about. And just in the last 2 weeks since we met, there's all this stuff to talk about. And that's because 4.9.8 came out. But before we get into any of that, I just want to mention at the top of the show our sponsor.
That's right.
They are Give. You can find them over at givewp.com. We'll gush about them a little bit later in the show, too. But
Absolutely.
they are fantastic supporters of the WordPress community, of the Gutenberg project, and of your happy hosts here. So,
And we'll be having them on the show soon, I think, too, right? In the next episode,
yeah,
too, as we get close to launch.
yeah, that's right. That's right. So, very exciting stuff to talk about. But if you are just opening Windows as you think about it, open up givewp.com and leave that there so you're ready for us to talk about it later. As usual, we will start with personal updates. Zach, have anything good for us? Anything good happening to you in the last 2 weeks?
I think it's me in process, but actually, I wanted to mention that, we talked about that Gutenberg theming course for a while, and we finally got it out on pre-sale. It's like 70 to 80, 90% complete. And I think about 100 plus folks have worked through it already. And it's really cool to see what they're thinking, what they're trying to do. A lot of block template processing. That's a huge one. So it's been fun to see that. And I think we're kind of seeing a resurgence of folks being like, okay, fine, I'll go learn some JavaScript or do whatever I need to do to get into some of this. So that's been fun. But personally for me, I'm prepping for a boot camp, man. I'm going to do a 3-month intensive 12-week basic JavaScript up through Gutenberg and React, and really pumped for it, man. It's going to be quite intense, but we got some folks enrolled, so it's a go. Yeah, man, that's the latest for me. How about yourself?
Nice, very nice. Well, I've been rocking and rolling on updating my Gutenberg user course. I've seen a few extra sales coming in the last week, and I want to make sure that they're seeing the latest and greatest. So all the videos are getting redone, any video that shows the interface at least. And I'm adding a whole new section. So here's my handy dandy notebook with my handy dandy outlines. And aside from the regular kind of what is Gutenberg, how does this stuff work, we're going to build a page. I'm also adding a brand new section on creating a full website just with Gutenberg. So we're going to pick a theme that I think is good. Atomic blocks, and we're going to build out a simple 3 or 4 page website with a blog, an about page, a home page, and just kind of go through that process. And then a special bit for freelancers, there's going to be a bunch of resources on how to deal with Gutenberg for your clients, which I know I've talked about in a few venues, but all of those resources will be available within the course now. So that also will probably come with a little bit of a price bump. So if you haven't purchased the course yet, now is the best time to do it. You can use the code Deeply for a Deeply discount, and you'll get the updates free for life forever. So yeah, that's really what I'm focusing in on. And of course, I need to do my modules for the theming course as well.
Well, just to transition, man, we'll say like we've got 3 courses under our belt. If you haven't started really learning what Gutenberg has, and doesn't have, right? Like where the bugs are, we talk about that too. There's a lot to get a grasp of, even just from a user side, right? So I think that's a good transition. But if folks are tuning in today and haven't dug deep, like don't wait, start playing around, getting comfortable, whether you're a dev or a front end user, power user, because there is quite a lot there. And as things change, that's less for you to adapt to and figure out, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, there's a lot of course material out there now, and as Gutenberg becomes a reality, I think it's time to start buckling down. It's I think 2018 for us has been the year of preparing for Gutenberg and helping other people prepare. I think 2019 will be the year of Gutenberg. So if you're a little bit ahead of the game, that will only help your business, especially because you don't want to start new clients off on legacy WordPress, right? If you're starting with a new project, you want it to be ready for 5.0 so that you're not already adopting that technical debt.
Well,
Uh,
speaking of, man, it is we've already seen it, right? We've seen the nag, we've seen the rollout now of it in the wild. Stuff has started to come in. I don't know. Do you want to kick off with your thoughts so far of what we've seen? There've been
yeah,
a lot of download. There's been a lot of reviews. There's been a lot of feedback out there. Hopefully, folks have already seen it if you're watching the show. But I don't know if you want to give us a synopsis before we dig into some of the 3.4 came out and all that too, right?
right, yeah. So there are two big pieces of news here, right? 4.9.8 came out right around the scheduled time that it would come out.
Look at that.
And yeah, right. And with that, I think the biggest change probably, I know there's like security updates and stuff, but the biggest visible change is that for users who have admin access or have the ability to install plugins, um, or have already installed Gutenberg or the classic editor, they'll see that nag, or the call to action, let's call it, to
The call to
try the call, yeah, that nagging call to action, to try Gutenberg. And the day after, I think 4.9.8 dropped, tens of thousands of downloads of the Gutenberg plugin happened. I think Dave Bissett tweeted 17 or 19% of all Gutenberg downloads happened that day.
yeah, that's
Um,
crazy.
yeah, so and with that, we're seeing a lot of reviews come in. Some blogs decide to highlight just the negative ones. This is garbage. It sucks. It doesn't work. It breaks my site. Other blogs that are a bit more even keeled are saying, yeah, there are bad reviews. There are also good reviews. So uh, we're starting to see kind of the fallout, I guess, of I don't want to call it fallout. That's like a negative term, but we're seeing the results, the early, maybe the exit polls of what people think of Gutenberg in beta right now. So, so yeah, so Zach, what do you think of? I mean, we've opined about the call to action. Um, I think the idea is that we want people to beta test as much as possible. Um, so I think it's still a little bit interesting that this is being rolled out essentially on production sites to try it.
Yeah.
Um, I find that a little bit questionable, but I do know that certain hosting companies disable it by default, so that we're kind of limiting the amount of people who are seeing it, which is I think good. We want as many beta testers as possible, but not at the risk of breaking a production site. Luckily, just pushing the button to activate Gutenberg will not break your site because it doesn't make any immediate changes to content, but I still find that a little bit questionable. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm going to give a short and optimistic answer here, my friend. I think that if somebody has a site and they are updating it themselves or seeing updates happen, and this pops up, that if it's their own site and they're DIY, they know enough to know whether to click on that. And if they're not running their site, or somebody is seeing it that knows that there are a web team involved, that they know to kick that up to them, or that they've been warned, at this point. So that's my hope for it, because hopefully we don't see the timeline, months from now. It's like WordPress tried to roll this out and it killed it. I don't think that's really going to happen.
Nah.
So I'm just trying to keep a high level view on this. And it is data collection. They're not completely finished. It hasn't rolled out in core, but it is out there and affecting it. So yeah,
Yeah.
hopefully anybody watching now is not leaving anybody hanging, but you're right. It's out there. My hope is that for people that do click it, they're like, cool, whoa, look at this, right? And maybe they're like, wait, why doesn't columns work? What's going on here? But at least for some people, I've seen a couple of those shares too, and I don't know if they're staged or not, but that's my hope, right? That's all of our hope, but
Yeah.
we know the implications. Anyways, that's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't remember the exact language, but nothing jumped out at me as like this is terrible language. Like I think the team spent a fair amount of time making sure that the language of the call to action communicated kind of the right message. So I don't have it in front of me, and I don't remember exactly what it says. So maybe I'm wrong, and somebody in the chat will let me know. Hey, this is actually not good language. The reason that well, I shouldn't say the reason, but in conjunction, I guess, with 4.9.8, was Gutenberg 3.4. So generally, they've been on a schedule of every 2 weeks. This one came out a little bit earlier because usually our show happened to coincide with the release of the latest version of Gutenberg, but they wanted 3.4 to come out around the same time, a little bit before 4.9.8, so that users were seeing the best version to date. So that's out now. Zach, I think you have been able to comb the list of changes before me. If you want to give some thoughts on it.
Yeah. First of all, just threw the link in there for folks who haven't checked it out yet. There are definitely a lot of cleanups, just going through fixing things, aligning things. You're seeing a lot of things like improve, tweak, remove, fix, add, and that's good. That's what we've expected. They're deprecating some things. So there's some interesting stuff like to get tech and nerdy, WP API, which for some folks was a way to easily access in JavaScript. API calls has kind of been replaced, and there's a fetch API package that's separate now that I think we talked about in a past rollout. So we're also seeing some evolution of how to handle API calls and automating that. Of course, a lot of it is still going to be with their Redux data store overhead, how we would access it, but that's pretty cool. So little refinements there. What were some of the specifics I picked out here? Oh, dude, here's one of the great ones, man, that I really liked on the list. An update to the docs. There's a simple one that added an example for register block type hook. So extending Gutenberg further, and a lot of folks are asking, hey, how do I do this or that? And somebody updated the docs. It was a pretty simple fix and an example, but also I want to throw in the link here. Hold on, update to docs. Because if you look at the history of who's done pull requests on this, it's 4 people, and I think most of them are core devs. There are so many opportunities, folks. If you've learned a few things or two or read a few articles, just do a pull request and make an update to it. And then you're going to be in like 3.5 being like, hey, we added an improvement in docs or something. I mean, maybe, I don't know exactly, but I think that, again, we've called folks to add documentation. So that was a pretty cool one I saw. There's some evolution. There's a search controller. So there's a lot of talk about, okay, if I have a autocomplete or I'm trying to do search functions and having some standards around that. So I'll throw that up in there. That was kind of cool. Let me see. Yeah, the rest were a little bit. Oh, another cool one was the React Native. So they're starting to talk about entry points for hooking up, the React Native version of this and implementations there. So I haven't actually tested or checked this out too much, but I'll throw that link in a moment once you start sharing a few things too. But I thought that was pretty cool to see mentioned. I don't think we've seen too much mention of mobile collaboration in some of these past releases. So seeing that, I've also honestly tried to use this on a mobile device, and don't know if you've tried to play with columns and other stuff on mobile, but it can be a little tricky. So I actually had the thought of like a little freak out of like, oh dear, what if I have a site in Gutenberg and I can't edit it on a mobile? I'm like, no, this can't happen. So don't just test on your screen and your beautiful, laptops. Make sure you pull out that old phone if that's something that you're using. So yeah, there's some other little things, and we'll get into some other news. But for me, those were the big ones. They made some updates to the contrast checker. That's a really cool one. That if you have texts that don't look really good, and they refined it for bigger text. So if you have larger text, you could refine that a little bit. So it's kind of cool. But yeah,
Nice.
a lot of refinements. No new big additions. Nothing that's gonna, I think, break anything that's in my dev courses. So yeah, pretty cool.
Nice. Serendipitously for me, because now I don't have to change the name of this. They renamed shared blocks back to reusable blocks. So for those of us those of you who've been on the journey with us from early on, reusable blocks were reusable blocks first, and then they renamed to share blocks, and then they renamed them back to reusable blocks, which quite frankly I think is a better name. Shared blocks kind of implies that like I'm I, as a user, am sharing this block with another user. Whereas reusable blocks, I think, is clearer, right? It's like, well, this is a block now that I can reuse in multiple places. I was also going to call attention to the contrast controller, contrast indicator thingy. I think that's the actual name of the object, right? Contrast indicator thingy. Because that's a nice UI change. And they've added some improvements for embedded video. So if you just drop a video link in the Gutenberg editor at the insertion point, which is where your cursor is, it'll automatically convert it to an embedded block, the appropriate embedded block. And they added a little edit button for those embedded blocks as well, so you're not clicking around trying to figure that out. So, like Zach said, nothing major. I'm pretty confident that with this update to my course, the UI will stay pretty much the same. Um, Whereas if you look at like one of the videos that I haven't reshot since January, you'll see some pretty significant changes. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think it's chugging right along. I'm really interested to see what this more widespread testing will uncover.
Dude, I
Um,
think it's going to be so much, man, because and give them I want to say give folks time or give the developers time to take some time with this. Like don't expect 5.0 to now roll out like next month, right? Like it would I wouldn't be surprised if there's a moon or two of processing all this and making it happen and longer updates with bug fixes that come out more regularly, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. And I think one of the big pieces of news that we're still waiting on, right? I haven't heard anything about this yet, is that Gutenberg hasn't really rolled out to .com users yet, which was part of that test plan, I think, right?
Double checking that on my own.
There we go. I was like, I hope Zach heard that. While Zach is double checking that, so there's a few articles that we want to share with you today, and the first.
Wait, do the big one first, buddy.
Do you want to do the big one first?
I want to do the big one. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's do it. Let's do the big one first then. Zach, I'll let you. You just got so excited. I'll let you introduce it.
No, I'm excited for you, man. You got the announcer voice. Come on.
Oh, the announcer voice. Okay, so one of the most common questions that we get for this show is will advanced custom fields work with WordPress? I am happy to announce, we're happy to announce that Advanced Custom Fields put out a new blog post. What was this, yesterday? 2 days ago? Very recently, yesterday, talking about if it will work with Gutenberg. And good news for ACF users, not only will it work in its current form, right? They're going to make sure that ACF works with the meta field, meta box implementation that Gutenberg has, even though it's not that pretty. But they also rolled out a super cool feature called ACF blocks. And Zach, I'll turn this over to you since you're of the two of us in this dynamic, you're the developer guy. Though as a developer myself, I am very, very excited to see this.
Yeah, before we even get into the text of it, because I haven't actually like fully tested it. I've read what they put out and I'm very excited to chat a bit about it. But if you want to watch a model of a company, know that a huge deal is coming in their ecosystem. Give a little preview early on and then stay mum despite tons of questions and controversy in that ecosystem, and then come out just in the nick of time being like, yep, here we go. I mean, you got to look to these guys as that model because they freaking nailed that. Not that like communication along the way isn't another one. There are different ways to approach it, right? The point is you do it well, and they've done it well. And basically what this article says, Joe, do you mind throwing the link up in the
Yeah,
show
totally.
notes there while I'm chatting? Is the first thing is, well, the great thing is that they still work, right? They're second-rate citizens because they're now below the Gutenberg editor, but most of them will work and be fine. So that's great, On the other hand, they also have introduced a way, and I was wondering how they do this, because we did a course and looked at how can you automatically port ACF over, and they came out with a new version that is not going to be backwards compatible. So make sure you update to that 5, and we'll talk about that process. But basically, one of the types you're going to be able to create in the ACF admin area is a block. And you could basically create a group that is a block and have some fields in that. And that's perfect. And I knew that that was totally possible. I didn't know how they were going to do it or roll it out. So it's really cool to see, and click through the links in the article just so you can see kind of their demos, and screenshots will make it all more sense, especially if you're an ACF user. It's not too big a deal. Now, this does raise a question of, do you need to convert all your ACF content into blocks? And if your templates, remember, if your templates are hard coded with ACF fields, you don't need them to be blocks. In fact, you don't want them to be, right? Probably, unless there's meta blocks too. Well, okay. Now I'm going to trick myself out, because you could probably hard code it and have a block saved in the content and potentially still access it. See, this is where I have to really like get down and test it a little bit more to find out. But the short answer is like,
Yeah.
it's gonna be okay.
Yeah. I mean, not only did they make sure that, their current stuff will work, but they made an easy way for PHP developers to tap into the power of Gutenberg, right? So if you're like if you're like in PHP land, and you want to make sure you have a good grasp on JavaScript before you go off start making things with JavaScript in production, this is a nice halfway point for you to say, yes, okay, cool. I can, thanks to ACF, I can add blocks, new blocks to my WordPress install, without potentially breaking and then not being able to troubleshoot JavaScript. Because Zach, I'm sure you know, like the beginning of everybody's JavaScript journey is, this is broken and I have no idea why, and also the site doesn't seem like it's broken, but it's definitely broken, until they discover what console is, right?
Yes.
So yeah, I was super excited to see this. I'll probably be making a video on how to do this for my YouTube channel in the near future. Once
I you will be, buddy. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is a good one.
So it's right now you can get it through their early access feature.
So talk about that. Mention how folks can get on this, because you do want to start testing this now, right? Go get in line.
Right, absolutely. If ACF was one of the big things holding you back from trying to upgrade to Gutenberg, you can go through and use their early access feature. And that article that I dropped in the link in the chat, links to the early access feature. We can link directly to it as well, though. It's basically, if you have ACF installed, make sure you're using the latest version of the plugin, and then in your functions.php file, there's a constant ACF underscore early underscore access, comma 5. That'll tell ACF to use the version 5 features. So is that what you just dropped in, Zach? Oh no, okay.
No.
So if you want to try those things out, you can. One more caveat is like Zach said, this stuff is only going to be available in version 5. So if you're upgrading to WordPress 5.0, make sure you're also upgrading to ACF 5, because then you'll get the happiest version of WordPress that you can possibly get.
Yep. GB plus ACF,
Absolutely. It's a force. It's a force to be reckoned with, right? You're able to easily create custom fields and make them blocks.
Yeah, and is it cool? I want to talk a little bit about like kind of how they did this and how Gutenberg makes it possible to not write any JavaScript, because there was a great post up in the JS for WP Slack when this came out, and somebody was like, "Oh, great! I can stop learning JavaScript and just go upgrade ACF." Done. Bye, guys. Bye. We're good. Not for beta, but basically, because when you build blocks, all of the JavaScript that you're doing is to literally just create that edit field. So if you're building a block with a text area or an image upload, all the JavaScript you're doing is say like put a text edit here and like hook it all up and wire it, right? And then there's another part of JavaScript, like what do you save in the actual database and how does that look, right? But you could override some of that by doing PHP. And so there are dynamic blocks, and dynamic blocks are half JavaScript for the editor, but then how everything is saved and manages in PHP. And a lot of devs are saying, hey, man, I'm just going to keep writing my WP queries and doing the same kind of stuff I was before in the PHP, just a little JavaScript over here. But what ACF has done with this is they built out all the possible JavaScript for all of their possible different fields. So all you have to do is write the normal PHP you're kind of used to. And if you look at the example here, it's dead simple, right? It's as simple as using ACF was to build templates to begin with. And that's just kind of in your PHP code. So you just write that, and then they're handling all that front end. So I don't know if it's going to be like a custom block creator plugin now, but it kind of is. I'm very curious to see how it goes. And it's cool. In the past, I didn't love that we had a PHP half approach to building blocks, because I kind of just want it all to be beautiful in JavaScript and work, but there are limitations and server and stuff. So because we are married in this WordPress world, we say it's this new React app, but it is still PHP connected, and a lot is possible with PHP. And this is leveraging that in a really simple, smart way. Like, I got it handed to him. It's smart. So yeah, definitely check that out. Play around with it. Go play around with it. Test it. And well done, ACF. Tip of the hat to you all. Well played.
Yeah, absolutely. Really excited to go and play with that. And Zach, your thoughts naturally are very appreciated, and I feel the same way. So, cool. Let's move on to another crazy thing that's happened in the last week. Something else that has come to my attention, or our collective attention, I guess, earlier this week. There is a live demo of the Gutenberg editor in Drupal. Zach was taking a drink there. I was wondering if he was going to do a spit take. Even
if it was the first time I heard it,
right?
It would have. I was shocked, and first saw it from one of the core WordPress dev teams. So that must be kind of cool and fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really cool. I'll drop the link to the WP Tavern article. So I came across this news because of a talk that's happening or happened at DrupalCon Europe. But who wrote this article? Whoever wrote this, Sarah Gooding, she did a really fantastic job of really parsing through it and finding all of the requisite information and demos and links and stuff like that. So in this article, there is a link to that talk. There's a link to the Drupal Gutenberg project, and a link to a live demo of Gutenberg in Drupal, which is really interesting, right? We kind of knew, people who are in the dev world at least knew from the start that Gutenberg was going to be highly decoupled from WordPress. Actually, you can go to a website called frontenberg, I think, .org. And
no, that's the front end version. It's I'm looking for the URL.
Yeah,
now.
right. Yeah,
it's a different one. I'll throw the link in, but yeah.
Yeah, there is a version. There's a website where you can just go to Gutenberg running without a CMS on the back end.
Yeah,
So it's very CMS agnostic, and it looks like Drupal is at least playing with the idea of bringing Gutenberg to their CMS as a module, at least, if it's not going to be rolled into core.
Yeah, I'd clarify that without knowing the full details, to say that my understanding was more like this was a cool, look what we can do, look at that. And I don't know that there's a soon time rolling in, or even if that's it. But like you said, a module that could be, and that's cool. And that would open a whole much more user testing and feedback, and would be interesting if it fed into a project overall. Like, it could be a lot of fun and cool. But at the same time, we know in the WordPress space that there are different thoughts on Gutenberg and its evolution, where it's at. But they're getting it a lot further along, and just kind of as an optional, like, what if? Like, imagine if I was about to say a Wix plugin came out, but like a Medium plugin or something,
Right.
If there isn't already one, sorry, Medium plugin WordPress developer, that probably exists.
But yeah, I really like this because the WordPress community can maybe be an echo chamber sometimes. Um,
What?
and
What? 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 What?
oh, did you hear that? I whispered that really low. Uh, yeah. So, and it'll be nice to get the perspective of a different and formidable open source community. Um, I think that I mean Matt Mullenweg has talked about that before too, right? It's good to get the perspective of other people and other projects, and I'll be interested to see what comes out of Drupal users playing with Gutenberg. Um, Also, that means just more students for our courses.
Lol.
What?
Honestly, too, it's a lot easier to dismiss and install once and be like, okay, either I liked it or I didn't. I'm just going to keep doing what I am. So I don't know that I'd expect like a big shift, but it was really cool to see that come out and talk about that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Even if it is just a proof of concept, right? It's a proof of concept that's proving one of the big things the Gutenberg development team set out from the beginning. We don't want to make this just a WordPress thing. So
there you go. Yep.
very cool.
Nice.
Along with that, one of the main contributors to Gutenberg, Gary I'm going to say his name wrong, Pendergast, wrote an article earlier this week called WordPress's Gutenberg: The Long View. I don't have any additional thoughts about this. It's just an article I wanted to put in front of people because I think he lays out a really nice plan. Like people are looking in the short term. This is going to break my clients' websites. It's hard to use. Blah blah blah. And he touches on kind of what does this mean when we get past all that? When we get past the growing pains of the new WordPress editor. So I think it's a really good read. We'll link that in the chat if we haven't already.
Just threw it up there. It's a short read.
Nice.
Take through it. And he has overseen big parts of the project in his role. So it's good. I always like taking the high level view. It does help.
Yeah, absolutely. And it really helps you kind of see the forest for the trees. Is that the saying? I always mess up colloquialisms.
Yeah, I never really understood that one, but I like trees. So.
Yeah, right. It allows you to get a high level overview. So even if you're in the thick of it going like this sucks, my client's website's broken, or now I have to change this thing. This post allows you to take a step back and say, all right, well, this change is good for the community and for the for WordPress in general. So
yeah, good job, Gary. Thanks for writing that. It's important.
So we got a question. Well, so I actually shouldn't say we. I got a question from one of my students earlier this week that I think would be nice, mostly because I'm having a little bit of guilt that I haven't answered him yet. And we haven't tried anything like this, but and I didn't run this by Zach either. I was wondering if I could switch to screen share later. We'll answer this question last. And so I can answer the question: how do I write a line in image in Gutenberg? Because I think there's probably a couple of ways to do it, and I just haven't like sat down to do it yet. So maybe if Zach's cool with it, we can do a live demo at the end of this, and we'll wait until the end so that people who don't want to see that can just skip it.
Just in case my hair catches fire.
Yeah, right. Exactly. But we do have other questions. But before we get to those questions, we need to give a shout out to our sponsor, Give.
Oh, good. I was feeling it was time, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
We can't go too long without talking about Give. They do so much, right?
Yeah, they do. I mean, they make this show possible. They are
one.
Yeah, right. They're the sole sponsor of this show, and they make it possible for Zach and me to do this every couple of weeks, put together the show notes and the format and stuff like that. But they also do really good things for the community. So if you don't know, if this is your first time tuning into the Gutenberg live show, Give is a free donations plugin. Let me say that again. It is a free donations plugin. If you go to WordPress, to your dashboard, and you go to plugins, add new, you can search for Give, and it'll be there, and you can set it up, and you can start taking donations today using PayPal. The nice thing about that is that you're not paying any fee to any third-party service except for the credit card processor, right? So you get hit with one fee, and that's the fee that everybody has to pay. if they're accepting credit card donations. So Give is totally free to use. And I know what you're thinking probably. How does Give make money if it's totally free? Well, they have a lot of really good premium add-ons. In the past, we've pointed out the Stripe Gateway. Last time, we pointed out Zapier. And today, I'm just going to spin the wheel of random add-ons and see what I come up with. Doot, 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 doot. Let's see. Uh, Molly Payment Gateway. So I'll speak generally about this then. Uh, most online e-commerce stores you find they accept PayPal, they support Stripe, maybe they support Square. I think something that sets Give apart from a lot of these other ones is they support payment gateways for uh for those kind of smaller niche ones that work in countries that can't accept PayPal or Stripe. So Molly is one of them. PayFast is another. Um, Sofort is one that accepts direct bank payments and is popular in Europe and Germany. Um, this is the copy. I personally know that Germany is in Europe, but I think it's especially popular in Germany, is what this copy is saying. So if you need to set up a website that takes donations and you're trying to reach an audience that can't accept PayPal or Stripe, um, Give has you covered for that. Just pick up these premium add-ons and you can start accepting donations anywhere you want today.
All right, buddy, you're crowding my Give mic, man. I'm going to
Sorry,
push you off the soapbox here because I want to talk about Give now too, man. We kid, but we're all big fans, of course. And along that lines, dude, I want to point out an add-on of theirs that is along those international currency acceptings, because I'm working on trying to do better pricing for my content across different countries and things like that. And they have a currency switcher. And that's a pretty cool little simple add-on. And if you know that you go to your search results of your site in Google Analytics and a couple out of that top 10 are international countries, you can get this simple little add-on and it basically lets them switch it to euros or to whatever. And they could see a live kind of comparison of what that's going to be in their local currency. And if they're paying through one of these different gateways, right, it's going to translate it for them. So why not give them that experience right there in the cart? And I think that's really cool. And just, if you're a nerd and you know JavaScript, you can do a little detection and play around with that and enhance it a little bit. They do have APIs and stuff. So very cool. The currency switcher add-on, another one. And thank you, Give, for letting us do this. And thanks for just doing cool stuff. And we are going to have them on the show. We've been talking with them lately. They're doing so much. I want to get them on to talk about what they're doing. And they know stuff about this stuff that we sometimes slip by us too. So good folks there. Give, thanks. Check it out. Currency switcher. Good add-on.
Give thanks and give, thanks. We appreciate their support and making the show possible. So yeah, we joke a lot, but we really do appreciate everything they're doing for the community. Cool. So let's get into some Q&A then. The first question we have is from, I think it was Karen in the chat. I forgot to copy the name down. Can you edit a reusable block, or do you have to undesignate it first, then update it? That's a really good question. So with a reusable block, the idea is create one to use everywhere. So if you create a block of, say, testimonials, you make it a reusable block, and then you can drop those testimonials anywhere. If you change that block, it'll change the testimonials anywhere. What you would need to do is click on the context menu for that reusable block, which is generally like a vertical 3-dot bar, and essentially like uncouple it, right? Undesignate it from the reusable block. So this is also really nice if you think that you're going to be, let's say, using the same format for different testimonials or some regular piece of content that you like adding to blog posts and pages. You can create a kind of generic reusable block, right, called like testimonial template, and then decouple it every time. But then you don't have to go through the rigmarole of like formatting it. You can just drop the right content in. So that's a really good question. Thanks for asking that. About the reusable blocks. And then Zach, I think you were able to cover this question in the chat, but just to say it here, Paul wants to know if there's a way to a filter to turn off the blocks API for a given post type. Zach, you want to tell them about the fantastic thing?
So there is a fantastic plugin that we got to. Oh, I think, are we frozen for a second here?
You are good for me. You just kind of got a little bit grainy on
We're
me.
good? Okay. I didn't want to be interrupted. Gutenberg ramp. The link is in the show notes. Just search for Gutenberg ramp in our plugins or in your plugins repo, and that will let you fine tune what custom posts, what specific posts, what categories, anything. So you'll have the classic editor installed and Gutenberg, and you could toggle back and forth. Great plugin. Glad that they did that. So helpful. And that's what you're looking for.
Absolutely, and we will. I didn't have this ready, but I did a little video for Automatic in WordPress VIP on how to use the Gutenberg ramp plugin. So we'll find that and we'll drop that into the show notes here. If it's not dropped in the chat, it'll be dropped in the show notes after in the recording. And that's just a free YouTube video that's out there. So that is the last question we have before how to right align an image. Do you want to do a little live demo here?
Let me see. I think that there was. I want to double check that I didn't have some other questions. Sometimes gotten a bunch in the forums lately and Slack about different GB questions. I wanted to make sure that one of them wasn't relevant for us, but we might be good. I also threw up in, as I'm looking here, did you see this ACF interview on Shop Talk with Elliot Condon?
I did. I haven't listened to it yet, but it came up in my podcast feed. So it looks like maybe they're doing a little media junket.
Dude, he did even better than I thought. They released a press release. You get on Shop. Wow, man, that's just well done. Yeah,
absolutely. So yeah, if you haven't listened to the Shop Talk show before, you should. It's a good podcast. It's run by Chris Coyer of CSS Tricks and CodePen and Dave Rupert, front end developer extraordinaire. And it's just lots of good content all the time.
Yeah. Okay. I remember what I wanted to just talk about real quick. It isn't so much a question as an observation. I'm seeing a lot of folks come in, first of all, thinking, okay, I need to learn Gutenberg and I need to learn how to build a block and I need to learn all this JavaScript, which first of all might not be true. If you're just building themes, you might not actually need to know how to build your own custom block. If you've gotten away without writing custom shortcodes before, you might be able to not do custom blocks. So just for one. But if you do decide that that's what you need to learn, and a couple years from now, you're going to need to know more of it, folks are having to learn NPM, Webpack, JavaScript, a lot of tools, getting their computers configured to run all these tools and servers properly. And folks are struggling and hitting some walls with that. So I just want to kind of give a message of, first of all, not everybody needs to learn JavaScript deeply. If you want to be a long-term developer in WordPress, you're going to have to go down that path, but it is a path. And that first wall of just kind of hitting of setting up dev tools and stuff can be a bit. So along those lines, just know that you don't need to learn all of it. Once you get going, it's really often just as simple as npm start, and you start something, and npm stop. It's kind of just going to be like as a second nature as, okay, I opened up this file and I save it. I also just got to do these one or two things, and you'll get there eventually. But I've seen some folks hitting that wall through the forums and PC issues and code issues and by code errors, and also just learning all of that. So don't worry. It's all going to be okay. But if you do decide to proceed, then just keep on trucking. You'll pick it up.
Awesome. Yeah, that's fantastic. Those are fantastic thoughts. The learning curve.
Sorry, the final thing is, this is how all developers build things. Sorry, WordPress, but you're learning something from years ago, and we got told learn JavaScript deeply. Like, I've been doing this for a while, y'all. It's so yes, encouragement. Don't worry, but also like, yeah, if you're going to do it, you're learning the right way to do things. So you're setting yourself up in a positive way. But learning curve there. Sorry, go on that.
No, absolutely. Actually, to that point, I was a little bit surprised when I heard like the verdict of people saying like, "Oh, I don't even know JavaScript." After Matt said, "Learn JavaScript deeply." I always thought that came with the territory. So that was a little bit of an eye-opening thing for me, and a good lesson to learn. That, I mean, it's a lesson that I constantly learn. Right, as a teacher, you should constantly relearn the lesson that people don't know what you know, and once you know that, you'll be a better teacher. But I just kind of assumed like if you made WordPress themes, you knew JavaScript because you needed to at least like touch jQuery, but not necessarily the case. So after that, what I tried to start doing, here's a little tip if you want to start learning JavaScript from scratch, kind of. Take Zach's course first of all, but I would try to do things that jQuery could do with one line in vanilla JavaScript. Um, so it was like a lot of Googling because I didn't know the JavaScript API very well, and learning how to use console.log and console.error and all that fun stuff. But I'm like, so jQuery runs on top of vanilla JavaScript. It has to be done somewhere, somehow. And I just tried to figure it out. So if you want, it's not a fun exercise, but it's definitely an exercise. um, Awesome. So we are coming up on time here. Zach and I have another thing in 10 minutes. But I'm all set up to do this demo. So I'm going to switch over to my screen if I can do that. So now you can see my screen. I'll full screen. So I've got Gutenberg up here. I've got some Star Wars Ipsum, and this lovely picture of Ben Kenobi. So if you have these two things, there's a couple of ways that you can right align an image, right? The thing that I'm most inclined to do is hover over this image block. So first of all, I added an image block. There's an image block here in Gutenberg. And if you do that, if you hover over that image and click on it, you should be able to click and it'll right align. So that's probably the most blockiest way to do it. But I just discovered something just now. If you are inside one of the paragraph blocks, right? If you're editing text and you're like, hey, it would be cool if I could drop an image here. If your cursor is inside this block and you click add, a new block shows up called inline image. So you can go and select the inline image. Naturally, I'm a really big Star Wars fan, apparently. You can select and it will drop the image in line for you. So now I should say that, right? This is just an inline image. You can drag it bigger. And so maybe the more flexible way is the block, but if you want to have this associated with a paragraph in some way, you can go ahead and do that too. So if I drag this, there we go. So now I have a nice look. Ewan McGregor, the younger Obi-Wan, and Sir. Oh man, I'm blanking on his name. This is so bad. It'll come to me. Don't worry. It's just that I'm in Gutenberg land right now. So that was a quick demo of how to write a line in image block. That was fun. If you liked that and you want to see more stuff like that, let us know, and maybe we'll do a few, maybe a live, excuse me, a live demo to close out the show. So
I was just about to say, man, could we like bring up a code sample sometimes people get stuck with? Because there's so many common things. It would be fun to do a little code share closing. I kind of like that.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll leave the live demos till the end, and then it'll be easy for people to drop off if they don't want to see that. But also, we can cut that out and make it a separate YouTube video if we want. Sir Alec Guinness. Guys, I'm really sorry I forgot that. The original actor who played Obi-Wan in the Star Wars original trilogy was Sir Alec Guinness. Cool. Yeah. So I would love to do more of that live demo stuff. If you want to see more live demos, leave a comment or mention it in the chat. And we'll come up with some cool content for you, whatever we're working on that week. That's it. That's all I have. Zach, do you have anything else?
Well, somebody just asked what browser you used there in the chat, but no, man, I think we covered it. It's going to keep rolling out. We're going to keep stuff coming. Keep calm. ACF. Don't worry. It's all good.
Totally. I use Chrome when I'm on my Windows machine, which is what I'm currently on right now. And when I'm on my Mac, I use Safari because it works nicely with my iPhone, more nicely with my iPhone, basically. So that's the browser I use. I've been considering going to Firefox, but I'm like, pretty pot committed to Chrome and Safari at this point. Cool. So that's it for me. Next time we'll have a browser war discussion. Thanks everybody for watching. Thanks again to Give for sponsoring this episode and this series. And thank you, Zach, for joining us.
Hey, thank you, y'all. Go check out Gutenberg.courses. Pick up our theming course while it's still on a pre-sale discount.
Yeah, without a doubt. And try Gutenberg. Install 4.9.8. Click the little button that says Activate Gutenberg on. I would recommend a local or staging site, and see what you can do. All right, thanks everybody. Until next time. See you later.
Happy Gutenberging, y'all.